I know someone's out here. I'm gonna get you. Pew, 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 pew. Oh, Lord, what was that? Whew. Y'all throwing me on my ass over here. Dear Lord, what the hell was that? Hello, friends, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be playing some Battlefield 5, so let's get right on into it. And today, ooh, that was a magnificent explosion. You guys see that shockwave against the Sherman? Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. And today we're back at it again at Battlefield 5 in the Pacific Theater. And this is going to be the only, I guess you could say, maps or game mode that I'm going to be playing in Battlefield 5. I extremely dislike and am very vocal about not liking all the base maps that came with the base game, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of history behind those maps and the people you play as or play against that I personally enjoy, but it is what it is. I'm glad that we at least have these maps, as they did revitalize the game. But I just absolutely love me some explosions. I mean, I'm pretty sure these are ammo caches, so yep, that was a beautiful explosion. Did you see that? Battlefield 5 does have some fantastic graphics. I think they're definitely rivaled now by Modern Warfare. Modern Warfare probably has better graphics. But there is some things. There is some models, some weapon models, vehicle models, maybe reload animations that are just better in my personal opinion. But yeah, I definitely love playing in the Pacific Theater. I think there's a lot of allure to it, especially as an American, and as an American that's very much interested in history, and more specifically American history. You know, as a kid I would watch things like the History Channel in my free time and watch shows all about World War II and whatnot, and it was just always interesting to me. And so to see something that takes place within the Pacific Theater is, you know, something I always enjoy, and I haven't seen anything like that on the console since Call of Duty World at War, I believe, was the last time that I saw anything that took place in the Pacific, which you know, is a shame. It's a lot like Vietnam. It's not something that is fleshed out very much on console in games. I know the only game that takes place in Vietnam that I know of on console would be the Vietnam DLC for Far Cry 5, which was also very good, but they're very few in number, and there is a lot of historical background that I'm very much interested in this game, and things like this this amphibious tank, you know, it's really cool to see things like this, you know, modeled after the real thing, or like Sherman tanks, or the Jeeps, or the M1, or, you know, anything down to the military gear, the way, you know, guys dressed back then in the military, and even on the Japanese side as well. And there's a lot of really cool history that goes along with the Japanese that a lot of people don't really think about. One of those things in this game that is connected to that is you actually get to be able to pick up, no matter what side you're on actually, but I prefer to do it on when I'm playing as a Japanese, pick up a samurai sword and go around and, you know, if you can, kill people with it. And what people don't usually think about is that the Japanese were very much recently, at least during World War II, in their history, a feudal empire, and many of the guys fighting in the Japanese armed forces had grandparents, not all of them, but some of them had grandparents who were samurai, which is crazy to me. You know, we're talking about an extremely ancient culture going up against an extremely new one, us, the Americans, especially at this time. We're definitely, you know, weren't around as long as the Japanese, and it's just interesting to think about things like that when it's not something that you're necessarily taught in, at the very least, like grade school history class, stuff like that. You can probably learn about that in college, depending on what history class you take. But it's interesting stuff like that that I really like about World War II, and especially all of the weapon systems that were around back then. Really cool. Tanks, the Shermans, like I mentioned, the planes. A lot of the aircraft carriers of the time were absolutely beautiful. I actually personally got to stay the night on the USS Hornet, which was one of the surviving aircraft carriers from World War II after Pearl Harbor. And that thing was awesome. I mean, it's a museum now, but you can even see some of the guns that were decommissioned on there that you can kind of like sit in their seats and stuff. And I don't know, I remember my mom and I, because I was a kid, so this was for Cub Scouts, so it was my mom and I, and we were staying the night on there. We got lost separated from the tour group, and somebody who worked there was just like, hey, do you want to come see the upper deck? And he took me and my mom up to the upper deck of an aircraft carrier. And I just remember looking out, and especially because I was a little kid, onto the deck of the USS Hornet, and that thing was vast. I mean, I can't even explain to you how vast that is. It's just completely empty as well, and it was just totally breathtaking. So there's a lot of aesthetic stuff about World War II that I enjoy, and there's a lot of history behind World War II that I enjoy as well. And you know, something not a lot of people think about. It's not really related to the Pacific Theater, but the Germans really weren't as high-tech of a military force as we kind of believe them to be. And for example, even in the later years of the war, even in the earlier years of the European theater at least, they were still using a vast majority of horses. And so they weren't yet a mechanized military force, while the Europeans and us, the Americans, were 100% mechanized and had been that way for a long time. And a lot of GIs were very surprised at how many dead horses the Germans were leaving behind. They just couldn't believe it because, you know, they had heard that this was the best fighting force on the planet. And obviously we proved them wrong about that one, but, you know, interesting stuff. I'm a history buff if you couldn't tell. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.